world, and welcome to another episode of the South African Spies podcast. Today in the hot seat, we have Leena Bachu, who will be joining us to tell us a little bit more about herself and give us an introduction to some of the topics that we look forward to discussing with her in future episodes. Hey, so welcome, Leena, to the podcast. It's so lovely having you here.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to chat and get into some really good banter.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here. I know we're going to have many conversations, going forward because there's so many things to talk about, and really just want to take this episode to get to know you a little bit better and, just get a sneak peek to all the things that we have to look forward to in upcoming episodes. So I'll start off by, just asking plain down, like, who is Leena? What can you tell us about yourself and a little bit about your history and backstory so that we can get to know you a bit better?
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Alicia. I would think the word multifaceted describes me perfectly to the T. I am in my 40s, hence, I think I have a fair bit of life experiences, so I can call myself multifaceted. First and foremost, I'm a woman. I'm a mom. I am at a stage in my life where I am exploring new frontiers. They say life begins at 40, and it's not a cliche, trust me. Life literally does begin at 40. You have a new set of goggles in which to see and envision things. So hence why I say multifaceted. Professionally, I'm an occupational therapist by qualification. And however, I've been delving into media the past few years. I've started working as a voiceover artist and I got into a bit of TV and radio presenting. So here was this occupational therapist with a medical background who is now a radio presenter doing a weekend breakfast show at a local community station in Chatsworth. And at the same time, I've now started doing MC work and directing programs for events. But I'm an easygoing South African Indian, and I just embrace life. I'm a hedonist in every possible means. There's more questions you'll ask me, you'll hear more about my hedonistic self.
So you say that you've got like this professional life and it's kind of like delved into two separate pathways.
Completely polar opposites, 100%.
And is that because your passion lies within both, or is there one particular path where you feel, slightly more passionate about?
I've always been a medical person at heart as a healthcare worker, as a therapist, and that will remain. And this is what I try to explain to people when they say, "So have you stopped practicing as an OT?" And I say, "No, I'm still an OT and I'll always be an OT." But I reached a pinnacle in my life, a juncture where I needed more. And COVID came at the same time. And as we know, COVID changed and transformed many people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
either belly up or brought about positive change. So I was at a stage where my practice had closed because of COVID. I was at the school practice. I wasn't seeing patients. And I just felt when we out of COVID, I needed more. I had this thirst that there was more in my life that I wanted to do. And I forgot to tell you, sorry, I'm also an activist in the community. I do a fair bit of humanitarian work within my power as a single entity. I felt I needed more. And the universe, I believe, always delivers things to you at the right time. And it's called
Absolutely.
synchronization. Yes, the synchronicity of the universe. I love using that phrase. And voiceover work came to me by chance. I'm a talker and I love talking and engaging with people. And next thing you know, I began doing voiceovers for people's businesses, for radio and social media. And I was getting really good feedback. And then suddenly this TV presenting thing came up. It was a short stint on Glow TV. And then thereafter, I applied for a weekend radio presenting position, which I got. And then, the mic was all mine. And I had kind of carte blanche on this mic on weekend breakfast between 6 and 9 a.m. And here was this OT who's now a radio jock. You asked me whether the passion has been split or whether I'm still more of the other. Here again, multifaceted. I'm still passionate about being a therapist. I love my patients. I love working with children, but I love doing things in the community. I have a phrase which I've coined, my voice is my power. So I use my voice to bring about transformation and change and make a difference in people's lives.
So yeah, let's talk maybe a little bit about, the work you do as like an activist. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that entails?
Okay, so there again, I am born and raised in Chatsworth. Okay, and I now live in Queensborough, however, but the Chatsworth community is heart and soul. It's a heart and soul community, and there's a lot of social ills out there. that affects this beautiful community. Although there are many huge organizations and NGOs and NPOs that do work, there's also a lot of single entities like myself who make a difference. And all you have to do is touch one heart, one soul, one life, and it has a ripple effect. You don't have to help the entire mankind, but if you can help one person in a community at any given time, that's your give back. And that's your pay it forward. So as individuals come to me, hi Lena, can you help me with X, Y, and Z? And I obviously assess the situation and decide, okay, I want to do something. And then next thing you know, I've been pulled in all different directions with women's empowerment activism. I'm also a brand ambassador for a women's empowerment group called Wand, like a magic wand. So I try to do my bit, Alicia, by paying it forward and just touching as many lives as I can. Be it from children's organizations to individual families who have a need. I try to make a difference. So I call myself sort of like a mini activist, but by no means do I propagate being a huge organization or anything. But I believe I have the power to use resources that I have at my disposal to change lives and transform and make a difference and bring about that paradigm shift that's needed in the community.
Yeah, I think paying it forward is just such a powerful, impactful concept, you know? It doesn't always mean that you have to do big things. I love the smaller gestures, the things that you can do to help, just that one person, or it doesn't have to be everybody, but helping somebody in some way, I feel is just so impactful and something that, we really should strive to continue doing in everything that we do.
100%. And I think that's what's important is, and this is what I believe in. And the more and more I've been doing activism within the community and linking up with other NPOs, NGOs, businesses, bigger names. And I always tell myself, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's certain organizations in our country, in our communities that get a lot of funding, that get a lot of community support, which is fantastic, be it a children's group or a women's group or an old age home or whatever it might be. But it's your little guys, your little grassroots level NPOs or charity organizations that don't get the backing and don't get the support because they're little and they're not as
Mhm.
big as X, Y, and Z. So those are the guys that I try and help, the little guys at grassroots level, because they need the exposure. They need you to advocate for them. And they're doing sterling work in the community, be it a vegetable garden in an impoverished area. They're doing amazing work, but they are not getting the funding because they are little
Yeah.
versus the bigger guys. So I always tell myself the bigger guys are getting the bigger organizations are getting the help from businesses. Let's look and target the smaller guys who's making a difference by providing school shoes for 5 learners, for example. Or there's a few neighbors in a person's road that needs uniforms, that needs a grocery hamper, that needs assistance with transport to get a hospital every month for their appointments to fetch medication. They need the help, but they're not getting it. So
And
I
I'm
work at that level.
And I'm sure those families are so appreciative of that help and getting that from you.
Absolutely, and that's all it takes is just a person smiling, giving you a hug, and saying, "Thank you, Lena. You made a difference." That's all I need. That's it. I don't ask for anything else in return, but just the smile. And when you get that positive feedback that you don't know how much this means to me, and something as simple as a pre-loved uniform for a child or a sanitary pack for a young girl so she can go to school for that week of her menstrual cycle, and you've helped with that. You've given her sanitary packs for 3 months, and her mom's appreciative, like, my daughter can now go to school. We don't think about these things. And those are the little things that have that ripple effect. Not so long ago, I helped a child who has a severe congenital neurological problem, okay, and is physically challenged. And they're living in a wooden cabin in Chatsworth. And the mom came to me and says, Lena, can you assist us? I'm getting quotations to get a simple aircon unit for the cabin because the child has convulsions. So when his temperature goes up at a certain time, he can convulse and that can cause further brain damage. And so I said, okay, let me see what I can do. And it was Valentine's month. In fact, it was around this time, about 3 years ago. So I called my initiative a Valentine's Pay It Forward. And it took me 24 hours to get an aircon unit for this boy because people came forward and we got it at a huge discount. And the mom was able to afford it with whatever little money she had. And I had sponsors come in as well. Something as simple as that for this little boy.
Yeah, what a big difference to their lives.
Exactly. And last year I helped a young lady with a matric dance. Now, this is a bit of a different story, but it's a heartwarming story. I know the family, and it's a single mom, and it was time for matric dance in March last year. And she's like, Lena, how do I tell my daughter I can't send her to the matric dance, her Deb's ball, which you call it sometimes, because I don't have money for a dress, her hair, her makeup, and it's on a different level now going to a matric dance. If you look at the way what the girls are wearing, how they are being transported, the hair, makeup, shoes, all of that. And so I told her, I said, okay, just leave this with me. Let me see what I can do. So once again, I used all my resources from a designer that I knew through another person to transport to hair, makeup, and literally, Alicia, within 2 days, I had this entire matric dance sorted. A top designer in Chatsworth loaned her a dress, bespoke dress, which was fitted for her. Her hair and makeup was sponsored by beauticians and hairstylists. Her transport was sorted. We had a whole convoy of super bikes that transported her in a sports car to the exhibition center in Durban. Everything was sorted. The only thing I think mom had to buy was her shoes. Mom made a plan and bought her shoes. Everything else was sponsored. And it was a heartwarming story. You're taking this princess to the ball. And why? Because every girl deserves to be treated as a princess even once in her life.
It's such a special time because that's a memory that will, stay with her forever.
Exactly. Why should she not go to a matric dance because she doesn't have a dress? You understand? And because it's the way society we live in, people are like, oh no, her parents can't afford it, she shouldn't go. So no,
Yeah.
why not? She needs to go. It's her matric dance. She'll never have this time again. And even the local paper even featured her with her permission. And so there was some negative feedback that came through. It was like, you could have given the family groceries instead. And I said, yes, we do that enough. But this girl needs to go to a matric dance. There's no two ways about it. It's her one day to be a princess, and she deserves it. Why not? That's a pay it forward. And I went to the matric dance. She was on cloud nine. She was not bothered that her dress was on loan, that her hair and makeup was a gesture from a community person. No, she was having a beautiful time. She deserved to be there like all her friends. She looked like a princess. And that I teared. I sat in the crowd and I teared watching her walk, doing her waltz with her partner, coming in the car. It was amazing. And that it gave me I got goosebumps talking about it now. But those are little things that Leena Bachu gets involved with in the community. Same with sporting things as well, youth sports development especially. I try and help kids who need assistance with a kit in order to commence with participate in a tournament, things like that. So they don't get that help, you see.
Yeah.
But it's important. You're making a difference at grassroots level once again.
That's great. And we hope that, you continue to do so and that you get all the support that you need to carry on making those differences.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I want to just go back a little bit and I want to talk about the, creative side to you, your emceeing and the voiceover artistry and being a radio presenter. Those are all really exciting things, and they're three different avenues that are, kind of the same but also quite different. From the three, is there anything that you enjoy more? Is there, one of those avenues that actually stand out to you a little bit more?
You know what? They're all so part and parcel and intertwined because in all of them, I'm talking. Okay. I'm using this voice that I told you about. Voice is my power. I loved being on radio. I'm not on radio anymore. I was on radio for a year and I would love to go back onto radio. But I think being an MC as well and a public speaker brings that back into the limelight. I love engaging with people. I love engaging. I'm a people's person. So I can honestly say that passion's still being fed. Even voiceover work, my voice is making a difference to whoever's listening to that voiceover. Be it storytelling, be it an advert for a business, be it a fundraising promo that I've put together. So I love it, and I think it's all intertwined, part and parcel. But if I could have my way, I would love to be on TV. My
Mhm.
TV journey was very, very short. Yes, I don't have formal qualifications, but put me in front of a camera and I will talk. you know, I may not act, but I can talk. So I'd love to have my own talk show. I would love to have a talk show with really, light-hearted banter, but at the same time, making a difference at grassroots level.
Well, like you said, life begins at 40, so that dream is still quite a possibility.
Yeah, I'm approaching my fifth decade though, so maybe we'll have to change that to life because at 50, when you're younger, you always hear this thing, oh, life is just a number, life is a number, life begins at 40. But when you're older, it's like, hey, there's actually truth to that statement. Because my life literally began at 40 when I became a mom. In my 40s, I'm undergoing all these transformations or metamorphoses. So yeah, age is just a number, hey. Not just when it comes to romance, but in all spheres of one's life, you know. And I think the lifestyles we lead these days, I'm sure you agree with me. The 50 now and the 50 from our grannies and grandpas' times are completely different.
Completely. We're living such different phases, even, at younger ages. Like what the 20s were back then is so different to how the kids are having like their 20s now. And even like the 30s. 30s used to be like old. And I mean, I'm in my 30s and I consider myself old. But if I look at where we are in those points of lives, it's usually where you would be, at a later stage. And I do feel it is quite different. So luckily, there's still a lot to look forward to as we are aging. And that maybe helps us age a bit more gracefully.
And there again, as we know, a lot of couples are getting married much later
Yeah.
in life, in their 30s, in their 40s, starting their families even later compared to before. Like back in the day, you were an old maid if you were 35 and didn't even have a child. If you could, that is, but if there weren't any other factors. But life is different. I mean, some individuals are meeting their soulmate only at 35 or 40, then settling down much later if they choose to get married even. Sometimes they choose not to get married. But our grannies then already had 5 children by then. Sometimes the mother-in-law will have another child while the daughter-in-law is having a child.
Yes.
That was in terms of my grandparents, I kid you not. So obviously we know I'm older than you. So my parents, for example, my mother, I know we're digressing here, but my mother was the eldest daughter-in-law in the 1960s when she got married, okay? In this huge family, she married into a big Bachu family. So when my mom had her first child, my mother-in-law had a 2-year-old. I kid you not. So here was the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law who had little kids. So my granny had a 2-year-old who was her last born, and the eldest daughter-in-law in the family had her newborn.
Oh, wow.
1960s, South African India, in Durban.
I really do want to hear a little bit more about more of your family history. But before we get to that, you spoke about a lot of different things that you do, and it's a lot. It's a lot of different things that you take on. And I just want to get an understanding of how you personally find balance in, being a mom and doing everything else that you do, your passion projects and, your normal day job. And also just making sure that you are putting yourself first and also giving yourself the time that you need. Is that something you do? Is that you still finding that kind of way?
I think I get everything done, Alicia, because I don't sleep.
Well, that's not healthy.
You know what they say, sleep when you're dead. It's not healthy at all. And I don't get enough sleep. So when I do get a chance to sleep, I sleep. I will hibernate. But when you have a very busy 8-year-old, you'll see when you're at that stage in your life, there's no way a household can sleep because they will want to be up at 5 o'clock on a Saturday with the TV on or the cell phone, some game on, or playing outside with dinosaurs. And he's like, come on, come back to bed. No, So it is hard to have that balance. I try my best to balance, but by no means, I think I'm a superwoman. But at times we're not superwoman. We need that balance. But I think also very importantly, a life lesson. I'm learning to say no, which I
Yeah.
couldn't do in the past. And a lot of individuals will tell you the biggest thing is because we have these huge hearts and this capacity to love, and you wanna help the whole world. You want world peace. You gotta say no, or else you burn out. And I've burnt out many times. I will admit it. I've burnt out many times, and now I've learned to toughen up and say, hey guys, I would love to help your project, but I'm sorry, I'm full at the moment. I've got a load on my plate. So I'm learning to say no, and that's how I ensure there's some sort of balance. And the power to say no in a good, kind way, and in doing so, respecting your body, respecting yourself, respecting your mental health, very importantly. There was time I was not saying no, and I was helping the whole world and not helping Leena, Bachu.
Yeah. It is important to be able to say no. And I think there's also just so much of guilt, I'd like to say, attached to, saying no. You always feel like, oh, you're being so selfish and, why can't you just do it? Just like push yourself and things. I think I've had, some of my own experiences where I've had to say no too. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to, deal with on your own and to really just come to terms with the fact that you had to say no. And oftentimes I find myself reflecting back on those things and like questioning myself and be like, could I have done it? Could I have really done it? Was I just being nasty? Was I being selfish to say no? And at a later stage, you get to the realization that you have to put yourself first at some point or the other. And not all the time, but, you also need to know where your boundaries and your limits are to be able to do that.
And I think, as you correctly pointed out earlier, it's all about maintaining a balance because, and you hear this phrase all the time. If you If you don't take care of yourself, you're of no use to anyone else. And then
Yeah.
I have to remind myself, if I'm incapacitated, if I'm burnt out and mentally exhausted, what's going to happen to my son? What's going to happen to my patients? What's going to happen to people who depend on me? So I have to put myself first as well. And I think once again, the saying no in the proper way, in a respectful way, in a kind way, is important.
Yeah.
And if others can't understand that, they're actually being selfish. Because you know what, Alicia, out there's a lot of individuals who we call them energy vampires. They sap the living force out of you. And we sometimes I've fallen prey to that many a times,
Mhm.
many times. And now I've learned my boundaries, when to say no, when to assist, when to not be taken advantage of. It's important to maintain that balance. So when
Yeah.
I do have time, I love to travel, I love to hike and spend time in nature. In South Africa, you're either a beach person or you're a bush person. I live on the East Coast, so the beach is here and we take it for granted. I'm a nature person, bush, mountain, anytime over the beach. For me, that is. So I love spending time in nature and I inculcate the same love for nature with my son. So I want to
Mm.
find, a waterfall site that I've never been to, or a hike I've never gone to, or a little nature trail, and spend time in nature. And I'm also a bit of a nerd. I love doing crossword puzzles and old-fashioned puzzles. Don't give me these electronic Sudokus and word searches. No, no, no. I want a physical book. This is where you see my age. And I will buy certain magazines just for the puzzles and the word and the brain teasers and the word. And I will sit with my pen, my coffee, my packet of flings, and I'll be doing this word search. And I'm happy as Larry.
Yeah, it's always the simple things. And I mean, it's good. It's good that you have the hobbies and you enjoy, doing those other things as well. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's a saying that I've actually used on a lot of my trainees and like, colleagues and people in my teams and stuff. And until one of them used it on me and were like, you keep telling us you can't pour from an empty cup, but are you following your own advice? And I was like, okay, I got called out, and that's really where I got into that habit of reflecting and also figuring out where my boundaries were and when I needed to be able to say no. So, yeah, I mean, that's good. Back to, getting to know the other side of you. Tell me, Leena, what do you know about your family heritage and, any stories of how your family made their way from India to South Africa?
Okay, so I'm quite certain I'm a fourth generation in terms of a South African Indian living here in South Africa. So it would have been my great grandparents that made the exodus from India to here. And there again, it's a topic that I've recently become very passionate about, due to the work that I was in terms of my radio presenting and things like that. So I delved a fair bit into our history of 1860 indenture.
Okay.
And here in Alicia, there's so much of untold stories. There's so much of history that a lot of average South African Indian don't know about. And it's so important that we trace our roots and our heritage. And with this era of technology that we live in, it's all available at a click, literal click of a mouse, provided you know, for example, which ship your ancestors came on. If you know the time, the period when they arrived, the name of the ship, and their proper names and indenture number. That's all you need. If you have a document to say, this was my great grandparent or great great great, and you go click, click, click on the database, and boom, the history comes out where they came from, which area in India they arrived from, and which port they left, etc. Unfortunately, with my roots, I couldn't trace that because a lot of our forefathers were not literate and perhaps didn't have the reasoning behind, okay, we should keep our documents. We don't really, versus, no, we don't need this. We can just toss it out. So in my family, personally, both my mom's side and my dad's side, not much tracing has taken place. Although on my mom's side, a fair bit did happen, but not with like a direct link to meet where I could say my great grandfather came from here or lived here and this was, the village he lived in, etc. So back to your question, I'm fourth generation. And unfortunately, it saddens me to say I don't have information on my history apart from what I've researched generally. But in
Okay.
terms of my family tree, it stops at a certain point. So that's
Yeah.
sad thing in terms of, and I know I'm not the only South African Indian who would say that. In most families that I know of, they don't have the roots and heritage traced.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's also part of kind of, what makes us South African Indians is it's a big part of who we are. Is the fact that we actually can't trace back because we don't have the correct information to do those searches. Or, we don't have either the right documentation or, unfortunately, the generations that have that information and who could tell us what we need to know are no longer with us.
Yeah. And in saying that as well, in the same breath, I have a lot of friends or colleagues who were able to successfully trace their history because they had the documents. And listening to their stories is amazing and so heartwarming. They pull out this old rusted tin with the documents in it. Oh, I've got goosebumps saying that. It's old tins, and it's like these are the documents, and you smell that old paper. I'm a very sensory person, so I'm not sure about you, but I love that, and you feel history in your fingertips. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. And I'm jealous. I'm actually jealous that guys, you were able to do this and I can't. And they tell you stories about the lineage. And I go back to
Mhm.
my mom and dad again and say, are you sure? So and so doesn't have certain documents. There's no way we can trace. They just have very scant information. They think it's from this area in Maharashtra or here or there, but that's it. It won't amount to much if I have to go into the heart of India and find out where I
Yeah.
came from.
No, it is unfortunate, but yeah, I also feel like the people who do know and are able to trace back, they're so lucky. I mean, I know a little bit about, our family history, but I only know what my grandmothers obviously told us. I wish I could find documentation. I wish I could, have something solid to like look on. But, luckily we're in the process of, I'm working with some of my other family members to get that information because I know a lot of research is something that a generation before me have done. So I'm very excited to see kind of like where that ends up and what we're able to find and how far back we're able to, trace further than my granny stories, and also just seeing how much we can fact check stuff like that. But yeah, it definitely is very sad when it's something you can't do.
Exactly. And quite happy with the fact that you said, there is some sort of research that was done and you're trying to dig a bit deeper. Because as I mentioned, it's really simple in this day and age. It's really simple with the university database, with heritage museums and sites. The ship's log is on the internet. You just need to find out which ship. Can I ask you a question, Alicia,
Yeah.
in terms of, okay, how many ships do you think made that journey between India and South Africa during the period of indenture? How many ships do you think arrived?
Oh, that is a tough one because I actually don't know in terms of the full story.
And here again, once again, it goes back to information, education, literature. When I was at school, when I was in high school in the late 80s, early 90s, okay, we had a tiny, tiny percent of our history lessons, I think it was grade 9, that touched on Indian indenture in South Africa. Tiny, tiny bit. But those books, those textbooks were written by the apartheid government or the education system at the time. Do you understand?
Mhm.
So even that information was not always factual. But my point being, the information we get out of those history lessons from my school, we just heard of two ships, the Belvedere and the Truro. Does that ring a bell?
I don't even know when we got taught these things, but I don't remember much about that period as part of history lessons.
Exactly. So my generation grew up thinking, okay, two ships did this journey between India and between our motherland and South Africa, the Truro and the Belvedere.
Mm.
And then when I began doing my research a few years ago, now as a woman in my 40s, I was like, oh my God, there were 71 ships between 1860 and 1911. The last ship, I stand to be correct, I think it was Umlazi, made the last journey in 1911. 71 ships. Some ships just did a maiden voyage, like the Truro never returned. There were other ships that did multiple trips, 8 trips, 9 trips, etc., during that year. And if you Google the ships that brought the Indian indentured laborers to South Africa, I want you to, I'm going to give you a bit of homework. Okay. Go and look at the names of those ships, and you are going to be pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to say anything further. And even for others who are listening to this podcast, and if your Indian indentured history is something that you're passionate about, Google the names of some of the ships that made that journey, and you'll be, oh my God, no, you're kidding me. this is the name of the ship.
I'm definitely going to look into this because I know this is part of, one of the topics that you and I are going to be talking about. So I'm definitely going to do my homework for that next topic, and we are going to talk about this in a lot more detail. But talking about our future episodes, let's just do a little bit of a teaser for what's to come. You and I have a lot of topics that we're very excited, to talk about and to get into depth about. But can you just give us a little bit of a teaser for what to expect in future episodes together?
So I think what I can bring to the table, as once again a woman proudly in my 40s, okay, is 40-year-old plus auntie perspective, okay, of life in South Africa, life as a Durbanite, life as a South African Indian through the eyes of my 40-something, perspective. So I would love to be part and parcel of that, because you have your youth demographic that brings a different spin and spice, and then you bring your auntie perspective with a different spin and spice. Also, what I'm very passionate about, apart from just our culture, it's women conquering new frontiers in their so-called midlife. Okay, and I think this is where my paradigm shifts came in. Here again, that the whole cliche of you're never too late, you're never too old, sorry, to try something new. You're never too old to change direction, career paths, passion. So a phrase that I also coined is not midlife crisis, but midlife passion.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
So it's like, Leena, wow, you're in your 40s and you're presenting on radio. I said, yes, the midlife passion, not a crisis, because books always talk about midlife crisis. You reach your
Yes.
40s, approaching 50, and you're like, oh God, no, this is it now, and they have this crisis. But it's a midlife passion. And you're changing gears, you're shifting gears and reinventing yourself. And yes, you are wiser, you are introspecting, but you're making positive changes there as well. So hence why no crisis in this area. It's midlife passion.
Yeah, now I'm very excited to, have your perspective on a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, and also just we're going to delve a lot into, your own personal experiences as well that you are, going to openly share with us. And I'm going to thank you in advance for it, because I know we've spoken about a couple of things for a while, and we're really going to just touch on we're going to open up the space, open up the conversations for certain things in the Indian community that I think really needs to be spoken about. And one of those big things is going to be, dealing with infertility, dealing with child loss, dealing with, the trying to conceive journey and stuff like that. And that is also going to play a big part of our conversation.
Exactly. And I think there again, I keep talking about being in my 40s, being in my 40s. I mentioned this to you. I literally became a mother at 40, and life started at 40 as a mother, in every sense, in every possible literal, figurative sense. And my infertility journey, just for the listeners, is that I had an 11-year journey of infertility and infant loss, miscarriages, and a struggle to conceive. And so I have a miracle son who I gave birth to after 11 years of this journey of mine. I've had to undergo a lot of healing, spiritual evolution in this 11 years, and I would love to share my story with other women and men find themselves. Remember, it's also a partner. If a woman is dealing with infertility, okay, just a woman I'm talking about, her partner is in the same journey with her. Her depression, her mood swings, her tears, he's sharing it as well. And I think with men, they share it from a different level in terms of being this partner, right? Yes, if there's male infertility, that's a different issue completely, which we can also touch on. But as you and I said, 95% of the time, the focus, the camera is on the woman. There's something wrong with your body. Why are you not falling pregnant? No, the guy is fine. He's fine. He has strong swimmers, you know.
It's the most infamous line.
Exactly. Infamous about the strong swimmers. I know you have a problem. It's your eggs.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
So we're going to delve into that. I'm going to try and take the blinders off and, uncover all these myths, urban legends, and superstitions, and stigma and stereotypes associated with that. And trust me, Alicia, as I said, I am an auntie. So I've learned over this 11 years how to deal with busybodies and individuals just get up to no good and I just want to pick on you or think they know more than you. And I found ways to put them in their places, trust me. But I have a beautiful boy. He's my everything. I was hoping to fall pregnant earlier. It never happened, and there was a lot of losses in between. But in saying that, a lot of women, we spoke about this earlier, who are marrying later.
Mm-hmm.
So they are just in their journey having a child at 40 with or without infertility. However, my journey was an infertility journey, an unexplained infertility, because I
Mm-hmm.
never had huge medical issues. And that was the worst of understanding its stress and lifestyle. Meaning that it's not PCOS, it's not endometriosis, it's not any other factor. So the unexplained is worse because me being a medical person, I want a diagnosis that I can deal with and treat. So it became very frustrating for me knowing that it's kind of like unexplained.
Yeah.
Whenever you go for your blood test and scans, oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, everything's okay. It's okay, then why? Why am I not falling pregnant? And I don't want to hear about stress. I don't want to hear about stress. There's women who are in the ravages of war and they fall pregnant. There's poverty-stricken individuals with no nutrition and they are falling pregnant. So don't come to me with stress stories. You
Yeah.
understand?
And I think, that's something I know a lot of women are going to relate to because that's what life is like now. That's what we get told. And those are the kind of issues, that we deal with. And a lot of women deal with on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on years that they've gone, trying to conceive. So I am very excited to get into those topics and, just tackle those conversations because it's conversations that just need to be had. And hopefully it will get to the people who need to hear them. But what I'm also excited about is, you and having this experience and you're going through this journey for so long. I think you've got a lot of other ways to, other approaches to this topic. And, I'm really looking forward to your advice and your perspectives on how we can maybe get through it. Like, how do you actually get through it? How do you find the humor? How do you find the lightheartedness in these situations? Because it is a very difficult thing to come by. When you're constantly stressing and when this is the only thing on your mind and it's been such a long journey. So I am looking forward to having those conversations with you because I know you've got a lot to share.
Definitely. And I think I mentioned to you as well, now in hindsight, a lot of these issues, I would use my humor to get through it. And that's important as well, is, when you're on this journey of conception and wanting to become a mother, the road to motherhood can be fraught with challenges. And humor, lightheartedness sometimes helps you get through that. And no patient wants to hear those words. Don't stress. If I found another doctor or fertility specialist who told me don't stress, I would have, jumped off a building, because how do you not stress? How do you not stress when you're in that situation and
And
every month your cycle arrives and it's like, oh, flip, I've got my
yeah.
period again.
And also just don't stress, just relax, go on holiday, don't think about it, it'll just happen. If you stop thinking about it, it'll just happen. Oh gosh, all these things.
Yes. And what the crazy thing is as well, often the individuals, be it friends, family, aunties, whoever, who tell you don't stress, they've got 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. They didn't have to worry about falling pregnant. They were just boop, 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 popping
Yeah.
out babies. And they have the nerve to come and tell you or me or whoever, don't stress. So they're going to ask, walk in my shoes, step into my skin, and go through this journey. And then let's see if you don't stress.
Exactly. So I am very excited to go through, those topics and to have like these conversations with you. But I think, for today's episode, it was great getting to know you. And just to wrap up the session, I have one very important question for you. Leena, what kind of South African Indian are you?
I'm unique. And I think that's the important thing, is each and every one of us are unique. We don't fit into a box. And that's what makes us this exciting mixed masala. Your story is different to mine. Your heritage is different to mine. We may share similar heritages and certain cultures, but that's what's so beautiful and special about being South African Indian. We have this best of both worlds when it comes to our culture, our Indian heritage in terms of our roots from back then, our ancestry, and our life here in Mzansi. We are South African in every way, but our culture is so unique and different. I would go to India and stand out as a sore thumb. And people would be like, wow, you Indian? Say, no, I'm South African Indian. South African comes
Absolutely.
first, and then
Yes.
comes your Indian roots and
Yes.
your heritage and your ancestry. So that's the question. perfect mixed masala, be it Kashmiri mixed masala or the Rambosi spice or whatever they call it, garam masala, chili powder, you name it, we have it. And that's what's so beautiful about our culture and our heritage is the uniqueness that each one of us bring and to this rainbow nation that we live in as well, you know? So I'm unique.
That is perfect. That is absolutely perfect. And I think just such a beautiful way to wrap up this session of getting to know you. And yeah, I think, thank you for your time and thank you for being a part of this podcast. And like I said, I'm very excited to continue having the conversations with you that we're about to get into.
So I'm really looking forward to this journey as well. And I'm sure we're going to have lots of fantastic banter. And it's going to be lighthearted moments as well as, I think, emotional and sensitive moments as well. But that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of women. We can chat and talk about anything with no barriers.
I think I'm really looking forward to tackling conversations, regardless of what it's about, but having a little bit of that perspective too.
Absolutely, because you bring in the youth demographic, and I bring in the midlife demographic, and I think that makes the banter so special.
Yeah.
Versus you speaking to someone your own age, so you have two different perspectives, and it's gonna be awesome. I promise you. And yeah, I guess now and then I might be the little auntie in your life. Hey.
Yep.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's been amazing chatting, and really looking forward to what's to come.
Yeah, me as well. And, for our listeners, thank you for listening in. And until our next episode, shop sweet and aware. Lots of love.